This episode of Watch Out for Fireballs is brought to you by our patron, Abe. Thank you, Abe. And thank you, everyone who joins us at patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Do it. My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs. It is a Games Club podcast.
And this week we are talking about Warhammer Dark Omen, which is a real-time strategy game developed by Mindscape and Games Workshop and published by Electronic Arts for the PC and PlayStation in 1998.
Yeah, and this is an executive produced number. Thank you, Abe.
Thank you, Abe. This is the first Warhammer thing I have played.
It's my second. I played the Left 4 Dead clone.
Oh, the Vermintide. Yeah.
So I played the second Vermintide for a little while. It's boring. It's like grindy. You grind up for loot.
Yeah.
You get drops.
Yeah.
You know, it's got that nonsense to it, but it's I think that it has the same kind of trash metal aesthetic.
Yeah.
Is the appeal of Warhammer. I also think Iron Kingdoms, which is mechanically my current favorite tabletop game still for tactics, I think that is a spin-off of sorts.
Okay. Yeah, you've talked about Iron Kingdoms before, like as a stand-in for D&D on tactical, obviously it's individual battles instead of gigantic units, right?
Yeah. It's D&D parties, but it's got really nice tactics gameplay as opposed to strategy gameplay.
Yeah.
So that has been my exposure, and this is a weird, as much as neither of us like this, right?
Just gonna get this out here. It's a little bit like if somebody grew up and spent most of their time playing modern baseball, with the bats and the gear and stuff, and then it's kind of like we're just okay, and now go to Williamsburg and play stickball. Kind of deal. It's kind of a different game that I'm used to, and boy, the rough edges on this are really rough, and it's hard to go back without having fondness for this exact kind of crunch in its initial iteration.
It's not the kind of thing we usually do. Yeah. And it's very, very hard after having done StarCraft 2 really recently, which is the friendliest version of this genre. But I was saying that to segue into the people who expressed excitement about us covering this. I think in general, we're excited about Warhammer more than they were this specific game. And that charm came through for me. Yeah. The idea, they were just oh man, this shit slaps. I was laughing out loud at the going to Sylvania to fight Lord Vampulon, and his Draconauts, the just nonsense. Melding of real life stuff, real life horror, and then this just real charming, janky, homemade lore feeling stuff. That all worked on me. I got to the point where I was just really appreciating the cutscenes in this. It was so dumb. And in terms of skeletons that show up in cinematics, best in class, it does a lot of really good shit with that. I just didn't like the battles very much, even though I can intellectually appreciate them.
Yeah, no,
it was just not my type of game.
This opens with a supercut. It's basically a cum shot compilation, but for skeletons erupting from the earth.
Yeah, raise me and then necromance me, bring me back to life. Until I come. It's just kind of
it's one of those things, right? Because a lot of fandoms they get kind of prickly for, like if you say, hey, like the thing that I like is stupid, I'm thinking of like Star Wars, right? There are people who take that very seriously, and I think the people
humorless
who are
dorks.
Yeah, humorless dorks. I get the sense that people who like Warhammer for the lore aspect of it are not especially humorless by and large. I hope not.
Yeah, because it's real. It's goofy on the face. It's meant to be goofy. If it's not meant to be goofy, then this is the most Dermot shit that's ever been. But I like to think that it's meant to be a little goofy.
Yeah.
And in that case, I was like, man, I'm not going to like rush out to my local bookstores, the gaming shame corner and start buying all these novels. But I could imagine, I don't know what the pathway for me to get into Warhammer lore is that isn't me engaging in a Warhammer game property.
Right.
Which like right now are batting, pretty low other than Iron Kingdoms. Like the video games I played based on, I haven't liked that much. But I was like, I understood the appeal of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a tone to it that also, we talked about Blizzard, we talked about StarCraft, and I think that very openly, Warcraft was like specifically designed, I think initially to be a Warhammer licensed game, and when they didn't get it, they just said, well, we'll just kind of do our own thing that's kind of exactly like that. And and then the Warcraft and StarCraft, their goofy tone, I think, also comes from this to a certain extent, right?
Yeah. But they also want to make you feel emotions.
Yes.
And I think that the only thing this thing wants you to feel is like, fuck yeah, like fist pump.
Yeah.
The other thing, just getting disclaimers out of there, is that I didn't beat this honest. I cheated.
Yeah.
This game is really hard. I ended up having to cheat to beat it. I don't feel great about that, but we'll talk about, I think there's value in talking about kind of what drove that decision, because this game has a really unique perspective in terms of how to handle an RTS campaign.
Yeah.
Which I admire, but do not like.
Yeah, it is. It is not something. This is one of those things where I can definitely say my decision to to cheat to give my guys more experience to make them more survivable was out of interest for beating it for the show, because before I was doing that, I was restarting battles a lot in order to end it in a better position. Yeah.
So we will get into that, but if you want to take away my gamer license, that's what happened. If this had been 1998, I was 18-year-old Gary, and this just came out, I would have just powered through and probably ate it up.
Yeah.
As 41-year-old Gary, I just, not even for work stuff with the show, like I'm very ahead on assignment play.
Yeah.
It wasn't a time pressure thing. It was just how much fun I was having.
Yeah. So, and this is also like an infamously hard game, even among fans. Like that's the thing that you see about this is like, it's really unforgiving.
Yeah, it's a really fucking tough game. It's a direct sequel to another game. There's a game before this called Shadow of the Horned Rat. And that game, they have a continuity of character here. Commander Morgan Bernhardt, who is incredible. There's a weird thing where every character gets kind of one note for all their deliveries. So there's like this living embodiment of like snide derision that somehow is a master and commander. I love Commander Bernhardt. I love his voice performance. It's so dorky. I love his design, his like sullen guy who works at a GameStop design. Like he's just like, he does not look like it. He's got the real silly goatee and the scowl, and it's good stuff.
Hairline's just a little too straight. Bernhardt is great. The entire coterie.
His commander cuts his own hair. I save money that way and put it into my coffers.
The grudge bringers want for nothing because of my haircuts.
I cut the hair of all the grudge bringers. Come to me and I will give you the Bernhardt cut.
Oh man. But yeah, it's him. He got a magic sword in the previous game called the Grudge Bringer, and his whole crew is called the Grudge Bringers. You're called into service by Emperor Franz to stop this uprising of the undead in the south. There's unrest at the borders.
Yes. The game is several battles. There are cutscenes in between, and then breaks where you manage your army. Kind of do army management. The meat of the game is battles. These are done overhead on a 3D map. The player, what you do is you command units, so not individual soldiers, but like groups of soldiers, which you have a deployment phase, and you can place those within like kind of a bounding box, similar to like in pool, how when you scratch, you get a zone you can place the cue ball. You have a small zone you can place your dudes in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And something that really stuck out to me, even when I sat down to play the tutorial of this, I'm more familiar with Warcraft, did a little bit of not Age of Empires, but Age of Mythology. I know Command and Conquer is similar. Those are a little bit more actiony as far as like real-time strategy games go. This is much slower paced than that. We have battles taking place on kind of a grander scale. Things are not necessarily as, responsive because you are moving whole regiments around, right?
Yes. Yeah, it does. And it changes the tactics you use, which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
Which is something I like about the game if it wasn't so punishing.
Yeah.
Like there are classic tactics that you have to use in this. This requires more tactical thinking early on.
Yeah.
Death ball is not an option in this. This is a much more traditional strategy kind of thing.
Yeah. Eventually you get wizards who act like hero units, and that changes that a little bit.
Yes.
But yeah.
Yeah. And you kind of get a little taste of that at the beginning with the Grudgebringer sword.
Mm-hmm.
But that ends up being just crazy powerful.
Yeah.
And absolutely, and that's a double-edged sword as well, which we'll talk about. Like if your wizard dies, you just restart because, you're just fucked.
Yeah.
These individual kind of squadrons are made up of individual soldiers. They move, attack, charge. They can fire at range depending on what they're at or what kind of unit they are. When two groups clash, the battle plays out between them, and individual soldiers are modeled.
Yes.
Right. So you have a unit, and it's like made up of 10 little dudes. Mm-hmm. You can lose 3 of them.
Yeah.
Of that unit. It's down to the individual soldier level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like the body count on the unit itself acts as a proxy for the health of the unit as it stands.
Yes.
Right. And death isn't the only way to be defeated. So, if a unit is cut down too much, if a regiment is cut down too much, either friendly or a foe, or if there is some kind of fear or morale problem caused by fighting a spooky mummy, or just hey, you killed a bunch of my guys. Yeah. Regiments will be routed, and they will, outside of your control, turn and flee automatically, either until they are safe for enough time, or until they leave the map. And this is this is a big deal. You're going to rout more units. You're going to rout more regiments than you actually kill.
Yep. Which I really like.
Mm-hmm.
That's it's realistic. Nobody wants to die. It's always very silly that like I send my peasants out to just distract somebody and they just go off to die.
More walk then? Yeah.
If one of the units is entirely killed, like all the soldiers are gone, that unit's lost forever.
Mm-hmm.
And the strategy is super important in this. You have to position your units, attack in like these advantageous ways. So we're thinking of things like flanking and bringing in cavalry from the side.
Yeah.
And the number one absolutely important thing, which is ranged weaponry.
Yeah.
Archers and war machines and such are so important to this.
Oh my gosh. I mean, softening anybody up before they get into melee is absolutely crucial.
And that's that's something you do in other strategy games and stuff. It is way more key in this one, and more powerful. I feel like, like typically the way that they balance, in a more traditional RTS, the archers, they for their range they do less damage. So you do want to soften somebody up, but here, like infantry units fall to arrows.
Yeah.
Like they don't just shrug them off. Like arrows are serious business in this.
Yeah, I mean, especially at least when you are fighting orcs and goblins and stuff like that. A problem that I have is when you start fighting the undead. That ceases to be the case. Yeah. It's one of those things where they're like super powerful for the first half, and then that gives way to relying on magical items for the back half.
Magical items and siege weaponry. And shit.
Yeah. A big part of that for range, but even for just regular infantry and cavalry, is the fact that line of sight is modeled. There is fog of war in effect, and you're not going to get far unless you can kind of sneak around, make sure that you put people on the other side of trees, right? So that as they're marching by, you can, charge into their side or, set somebody up so they can, attack from up high and above, and it'll take them a while to, if they ever get to you, take them a while to get to you if they have to follow a certain route, or you're using your, archers to lure them into an ambush by cavalry, etc. Any of these are tactics that you could use.
Yeah, and you can use them in any other RTS as well. I'm not trying to say this game invented them.
No,
they're just mandatory here, which makes them feel different. Line of sight, and then also arc projectiles is modeled. You can definitely shoot a cannon just through your own units.
They'll let you know.
That's real bad.
They'll let you know.
Yeah, they'll let you know. Real bummer there. But then things like archers being on high ground gives them greater range.
Yes.
Things like that.
Yeah.
So you soften things up. That's really important. But you can't just do this willy-nilly because friendly fire is a big deal.
Yes.
When you're using your artillery, you're using your archers, you do that before you bring in.
Mm-hmm.
Like it feels like weird, like I'm pushing little guys around on a table.
Yeah.
It feels like more actual battle strategy in that way. It's like it's not cartoonified or video gamified very much.
Yeah, there's not like a hive mind kind of thing going on. We're not Zerg. In some ways, this is part of the charm of playing this, I think, and also part of the frustration is that this has some Pac-Man 2 to it. Just an uncharitable read would say like, hey, the pathfinding in this isn't very good, and you kind of have to coddle the infantry to do the right thing. The other thing is like, no, you told them to move here, and then that's how they would move based on the terrain, etc. So your relationship with, I think, maybe not having that much input into success or failure at a granular level, I think, will determine your relationship with the difficulty of this game, I think.
Yeah. It felt more realistic, but to a detriment to me.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I for more reasons than you have the notes, I hate the interface of this game.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
It's real clunky. Mm-hmm. It's the kind of thing that like you take for granted with modern video games, and like it's from '98. Like we can't be too mad at it. That's a quarter century ago.
Yeah,
right. Like that's a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, oh boy, does it? It struggles.
It's one of those things where it simultaneously gives me not enough information, but I still feel overwhelmed. Learning how to read the screen was a pretty difficult problem to solve, and knowing like when to go into the map. So like it doesn't give you a lot of information. Like you can't check an enemy's like threat rating. You can't mouse over a unit and see like a little tooltip pop up that says, all right, this is, these orc error boys. There are 12 of them and they're a threat level 2 skulls, right? Okay, well, I want to make sure I send my threat level 3 skull guys at them, and they're at full health, but I'm like at, less than so much health, or like I want to make sure that I, disengage before I hit this, this number of people alive. It just it didn't surface the stuff that I needed to act on operationally.
I feel like that was an intentional choice as a nod towards realism, but there wasn't a system in place to paper over it almost.
Yeah.
Like I almost wish like I had a spy unit, and then if I got that close enough to the enemy camp, I all of a sudden got all that information.
Yeah.
Or something. Like you could systematize it if you want to make that as part of the terrors of war is that you don't know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
And all of this stuff is load bearing decisions that are on the big decisions, which we're dancing around, which we'll get to in a moment. But like the hook of this game is the thing that all of this stuff makes it so difficult.
Yeah.
It's a fantasy setting. So we have magic. Casters gain experience. So they're kind of these little hero units. They get better spells. And there's this pool of mana called the Winds of Magic in this world, which is apparently in the Warhammer world is like these actual like energy that flows through on a certain schedule.
Yeah.
So there are different cycles of this magic being available. It's basically how many magic points you get.
Yeah.
On a certain timer. Your magic items also will work this way. Your sword in the beginning can fire once per cycle. Mm-hmm. Things like that.
Yeah.
And the spells are really, really important. You're going to want to be microing these guys.
Yeah.
A lot of damage spells, a lot of utility spells, and the enemy is just as smart and uses them. So the same way the enemy can get routed, just like your guys can, at least in the beginning of the game, the enemy is going to have magicians as well.
Yeah.
They're going to fear your dudes, etc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they'll be teleporting around slightly before you're able to teleport, things of that nature. Right. With the casters, I ended up really kind of getting the most use out of binding spells. Spells that would hold that would hold enemy units in place. Or like the Bright Mage is the only one that I was able to keep a hold of. He has a Firestorm spell that's just like an AoE that you can put at a choke point. It stays there for a good while, and it'll damage any enemy that is dumb enough to run through it, which is all of them, right?
Yes. Yeah. Because it's simultaneously hard, and the enemy's kind of smart, but also real dumb.
They don't know. So they're real smart, but they don't know that fire bad.
Yeah, they don't know fire bad. They know how to, manipulate your characters into fear. But so you also get magic items that you find during battle. You either beat a specific unit and get one, or you get it as a reward. Mm-hmm. You can also find treasure pickups on the map, or these like secrets within structures on the map.
Yeah.
And magic items are very useful. They typically kind of do a spell effect, but other times they just give you a bonus.
Yeah. So you're managing all this, you're allocating those magical items, and restocking your regiments in this management section in between the battles, kind of like this parchment spreadsheet, this ledger that you have, where you take the gold that you won during missions, specifically by doing well during missions, and spend that to recruit new soldiers or to upgrade your units.
Yes. When you upgrade them, they're more durable, but they're expensive to replace because that's money. Mm-hmm. You get the magical items. And this is where the hook of the game is, where this is a consistent RTS. You are playing the whole campaign. The individual missions are not really instanced.
This is literally a campaign, right? Like in the actual army sense, which is a series of battles along the path toward a particular goal. There was the Pacific Theater and like the island hopping campaign. And if if everybody dies and you're behind on one, you're going to be behind the 8 ball on most of them that follow, unless you are incredibly lucky.
Yep. It's a system where it reminds me of many board games.
Yes.
Right. It does the thing that is a specific bugbear of mine. I'm not going to go as far as to say it's always bad design, but a bugbear of mine, which is losing without knowing you lost.
Yeah.
I've made this mistake here, and that's the small domino. And because of this mistake, early on, I'm like, it's fine if I lose a wizard. Mm-hmm. And then several battles later, I can't really gain any traction. Yeah. Because I lost that wizard. Yeah.
I'll be able to stop by a tower and recruit a wizard before the next time. No, there are 3 of them. If you're lucky.
Exactly. Yep. So, as your units, if you do badly on a mission, if you do great on a mission, great.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of money. Your units are in pretty good shape, so you can bulk them up and you can improve them. Mm-hmm. If you do poorly on a mission, you get less money. You are less able to recruit your units, which means you are more likely to do poorly on the next mission, etc.
Yeah.
It is a consummate poor get poorer, rich get richer.
Yeah.
Arc. And the idea here, I think, the best thing this could do is you have a bad battle and miraculously you bounce back. Mm-hmm. Through your brilliant strategizing, you actually manage to make the best of a bad situation and start rebuilding slowly and get this kind of like bad news bears.
Yeah, build your momentum
over
back.
the course of a couple of battles.
Yeah.
That's the ideal outcome. That doesn't happen though.
No.
What instead happens is you just slowly grind yourself into dust and then have to replay a lot of the game.
Yeah. I restarted so many missions knowing that this was a factor because I was terrified of being a dead man walking, and trying to figure out, like I'd rather redo this battle now than, 2 days from now get to a point where I'm like going back through each of my saves and figuring, am I fucked here? No. Am I fucked here? No. Am I trying to find the point? So it's just like, I know I could do better here. There's a mistake that I made. There was this super powerful monster unit waiting in the wings. I didn't expect them to come from the south. I expected them to come from the north. I end up replaying it, not as a responsive tactician, but as somebody who basically used his
knows the future.
Yeah, so I have my little scryer, which is just a version of me that runs this scenario, like fucking Doctor Strange.
Katana Zero.
Yeah,
yeah. But for a slow strategy game.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a real bummer because it's a nod towards verisimilitude.
Yeah.
That you have this campaign, but the fact that you have to restart things so often and have the level knowledge is like the least realistic thing that could happen.
Yeah.
I've done this battle several times, and that's why this, Prince of Persia style, the canonical one is the one I won.
Yeah.
That's really contrary to what it feels like it's going for.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't save in battles.
Nope.
You save between battles, and battles are pretty long.
Mm-hmm.
In this, especially like as you get to the late game.
Yeah.
So it is a big psychic weight to restart. That feeling of like, I didn't do well enough, I may as well just give up now.
Mm-hmm. I can,
one of my least favorite gaming feelings.
I can conjure in my mind the person for whom this friction is the draw, but that person is not me. This friction is too much. This does not light me like a match. It grinds me to a stump.
Yeah. Yep. I didn't, and there are things there, lest somebody, leap out of the bushes and call me, either of us, a hypocrite. There are things where this works.
Yeah.
Right. So like, for example, there are survival horror games that are like this.
Yeah. You can, you end up in Resident Evil Code Veronica totally fucked if you don't know that Chris is coming through.
Yeah. Or just even Resident Evil 1, you use too much ammo early on. Mm-hmm. You can be kind of fucked off because there's a limited amount and everything like that. So you do replay. It's not as harsh as this, and it's not as long a timeline.
Yeah,
as this is. And this, as far as I can tell, this is the hook. This is the interesting and new thing this game does, and it's just one of those things where something is new and novel and respectable, but maybe not worth doing.
Yeah. Or it's just one of those things, right? Like, the different values. But I think that for us, if there's a choice between realism and fun, we go with fun. Like, realism is laudable as long as it doesn't, get in the way of, let's see here, a cohesive and integrated experience, let's say.
Yes. Well, and just for me, I don't want to speak for you, but my specific sensitivity towards repetition, or against repetition, hurts this.
Yeah.
Being forced to redo, slapping my hands and saying "do it again" is like my least favorite way to be punished in a game.
Yeah.
There are a lot of I think it's a failure of imagination that so often ends up being the case. And I feel like there are a lot of different ways you can do that.
Yeah.
I'm a much bigger fan of failing forward than fuck you, do it again.
Yeah.
And this, you fail forward until you just can't fail anymore. And you fail forward until you're more likely to fail forward until you're more likely to fail forward.
Yeah.
Big bummer. This corresponds with, I don't want like a grinding thing in this where I can do side missions, but it would make it easier, right? Like you would get through that mission, you'd be like, okay, I'm going to go kill bandits for a little bit and get some money to restore my people.
Yeah.
You can't.
No.
There are limited numbers of missions. So therefore there's a limited amount of gold. Therefore there's a limited number of people you can hire. You have to get to the end game with enough.
Yes. Yeah.
All that stuff.
Which is weird because you're mercenaries. Right. It would make sense that you would be taking on these jobs. Now, this, I understand, is one of the things that makes Shadow of the Horned Rat really worth playing. Like, that's something very cool, is that it does take a bit more of a freeform approach, and you're able to do side stuff and pursue the critical path in a nonlinear way and setting yourself up. The structure of this game is very strange. It is like linear, but you can choose to say yes or no, which guides you on very slightly different paths towards the same outcomes.
Yeah, and it's always the same trade-off. So like as you're going between missions, it's like a dwarf who's like, hey, do you want to help the dwarves? And if you and then your incredibly German advisor is like, if you do this, the undead are going to have more time to post up. So you choose whether you help the dwarves and get like a dwarven unit and some more XP and gold, which I always did because I was hard up for like getting my guys good, but it makes the next battle harder because the enemy has time to kind of muster.
Yeah,
and I like this choice actually. I think that's a good risk reward.
Yeah.
Kind of bit, but it wasn't. There's the fact that they were finite. But again, I don't think it'd be better if I could grind. Like I don't want to grind either. I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah,
for this.
Oh man,
it's just another factor that makes it really hard.
Mm-hmm. I like the you can say yes or no to to things along the way. For me, there was something where it felt bugged. There were missions that like I was just like, oh, I said yes to this, and then it acts like I said no, or it yells at me as if I wasted time when I said no because we were headed to a place that were there. Like it did not feel responsive. That could be a result of the distributable that I got of this. This isn't a game that is that is sold. However, I also that was the one that I sent to you. So I don't know how to account for like a bit of the wobbliness of that system as it came together.
Yeah, it's imperfect. I don't know whether it was glitched or whether it was just unclearly communicated.
Yeah.
And I'll also disclose, like, when we get in the nitty gritty of this stuff blurs together for me.
Mm-hmm.
I did as many of those side missions as I thought, but if I said, yes, I want to go help the dwarves, and they just made me go fight some other guys, I wasn't taking notes during the context of it. And there are so many restarts in this as well. I feel like my memory has been like I'm a 1,000-year-old vampire kind of thing, where it's like my memories are rewriting themselves for battles in this.
Yeah. All I know is I'd read about getting a tank, like a mobile artillery unit, and I never got the tank, and I wanted the tank.
Tank would have helped.
Yeah.
Tank would have been real good.
Solved a lot of problems.
Yeah. I like that idea in general for sure.
Mm-hmm.
There's a multiplayer mode where you can play as the humans, orcs, or the undead, like an asynchronous, asymmetrical multiplayer mode.
Mm-hmm.
But in this version, in the story mode, you have to play as the humans. You're always Bernhard. The way this works is you get little kind of miniature campaigns when you do multiplayer.
Yeah. So it's kind of mimicking that momentum in both directions in the multiplayer, which sounds neat. If you're sitting down for a whole night, for a few hours to play a handful of these scenarios.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. The music is fine. The graphics are fine. I think that it's kind of individually like a little muddy and ugly.
Yeah.
On things like the terrain is modeled in an interesting way, and eventually you get some variety there. But there's some real blah looking. Like a screenshot from this game is not going to look that impressive, no matter where you cut it from.
It's going to be a little,
unless it's from a cutscene of a skeleton like reigniting and doing like an awesome backflip.
Yep. I want to pay special attention to the to the portraits that they do. The polygonal animated lip synced kind of dudes, especially during battle, where like you're firing on me. Like,
little pop up.
Oh, that's so good. And other aesthetic stuff like the story feels pretty standard fantasy stuff. Ultimately, there's there's a lich and he's coming back, and you need to stop the lich from doing this thing.
Three doodads.
You do, yeah, and the doodads are not what you expect them to be based on their name, right?
Yeah, which some doodad twists.
Mm-hmm.
The story, there's so little of it.
Yeah.
Like the story is of this Grudgebringer unit where a lich came back and they went and got the three things and kicked its ass.
Yep.
Which my understanding is that's like, part of the big Warhammer appeal is it's the metal through the fire and flames of video games.
Right.
Or game settings where it's just like, we kicked its ass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeehaw, cowboy. And then that's Warhammer.
Yeah.
Everyone being so goddamn extra.
Yeah.
Was what made me laugh a lot in this. It is a nonstop Bernhard. Everyone's intolerable, like in real life. Bernhard just constant, like John Delancey-esque, sassing everyone.
Just needling all the time.
The first 1/3 of this game is literally everyone being like, Bernhard, I need you to do this. And him going, where gold plays better than blood, but blood doesn't fill coffers like gold. And saying something like that, like in response to everyone. Like,
you can pay me whatever you want, but the crows will feast either way.
Yeah. Hey, Bernard, do you want to grab lunch? Lunch is the blood meal of the gold, but gold jingles like blood in the sky. What are you talking about? You colossal fucking weirdo. And it took me a little while to realize it was meant to be funny.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, there's a character in this. There's like a witch hunter character who shows up and doesn't do anything.
All he does is ride ahead of you.
He rides ahead of you to fuck things up. He like one point he rescues a damsel from an empty castle. But there's this whole like, you'll call me witch hunter, well you'll call me commander, like little flirting thing that reminded me of Leon Kennedy and Salazar.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know. It's like, these just kiss already, dudes. Yeah. Like whatever this fucking Tumblr romance you have going on in this Warhammer game.
I mean, it's so hilarious too, because all of the signaling in the world is that the witch hunter general is like in on it. You know, it's like, you got to make sure that you zoom in on the dog, looking left to right, all shifty like. You know, it's a misdirection.
When I get like ambushed and shit.
Yeah, and causing catastrophes. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just like the guy who wrote the game, his roommate was a witch hunter and he wanted to get back at him. Like, it's real petty. Very strange. And the wizard is hilarious. Like,
oh my God.
The first laugh out loud moment where he's talking about what happens if he reads the Necronomicon. I just like dying. Like, hold up, you're fucking pulling my leg.
Yeah,
you know, and it felt really good to be tricked to like think this was just generic fantasy when it's in fact this weird, very extra.
Yeah, it's like
version of like Monty Python fantasy or something.
It's like turning on Blackadder thinking that you're gonna get a Downton Abbey, and it's like, this guy's a fucking moron. God.
Yeah, everyone is just God's idiot. It's just incredible. Like, it's very funny.
Yeah. So I think that we're engaging with the tone of the subject matter at the very least, in broadly in the spirit. If we get details wrong, please understand we're tourists here. Please.
Yeah, I don't have a degree in this shit.
Right.
Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Dude, I played this in a little Vermintide. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Have not done the novels.
So just want to put that there. I was not able to find any development detail about this. There was one podcast episode that was on a German site.
I was really surprised. This feels like hardcore gaming 101 bait.
Yep.
To me. But yeah, there's not a whole lot about these. This is a weird spring for us on the show because we're doing some real obscure numbers.
Yeah.
You know? So, and this is one of the more obscure games I think we've done.
Yeah, which is weird because it's a massive franchise, and this was not a small developer.
No. You know, Mindscape, big developer on PC. They brought us the Mac Ventures, you know, which I love. And this game is well received. You know, people really loved it, at the time, generally. It won the GameSpot's Best Game No One Played award in 1998. A little fun mark of shame.
Yeah.
So, largely for the PC version.
Yes, the PlayStation version is a disaster.
Not well thought of.
Yeah. I meant to fire it up just to see, but I can't imagine it's much more successful than, say, the N64 version of StarCraft or the PlayStation version of Diablo.
I have such a weak spot for the Nintendo 64 StarCraft.
Yeah.
I played a lot of that, but the interface, doing an RTS on a controller is not great. Like, I know that it happens nowadays.
Yeah.
But it's a keyboard and mouse genre, I think,
for sure. There wouldn't be another Warhammer Fantasy game for a while. It took 8 years. There was a PSP game called Battle for Atluma in 2006. Although Warhammer Fantasy kind of since then has kind of entered into a bit of a heyday. We've got those Vermintide games. They're up to, I think they're working on the third Total War game that's in the setting, which sounds neat. Like that. I think basing this on the that sound engine is probably a good idea. Yeah.
It's interesting to me. It's intimidating, right?
Yes.
Like, this could either be the first step in me like getting pretty into Warhammer shit. Because like I would play the fuck out of the minis.
Yeah.
That's scary bait. Or I'm just going to be too scared off and just continue to be into the stuff I'm into now.
Yeah.
Because this is work.
I'll like browse through or like look at a Twitter recommendation thread, like, hey, start here or whatever. But then I'll think, I'd just rather read about the Forgotten Realms. Like all of us are kind of locked into whatever we found in middle school. And for me, it was Forgotten Realms. So
yeah. I did, how many, dorky fantasy universes you have in you.
Yeah.
Is difficult. Boy. So we're going to get into it. The individual battles we're going to be kind of quick with. Not because they're not that different, but because describing, I set up my artillery cannon, my archers.
Yeah.
So these guys came in, and then after they got close enough to me, I sent my infantry at them.
Yeah.
Which is what I, did for basically the first third of the game as best I could, is not going to be that interesting.
Yes.
And I also want to put in the caveat that I didn't take notes while playing, and I replayed missions so many times, like some of this shit does blur together. So apologies if I get any details wrong on this. Remembering like the individual, like the Battle of Helmgart is impossible for my brain.
Yeah.
At this point.
Also, given the way that the game is structured, certain things are mutually exclusive. So if there's a favorite mission that you were really hoping that we would get to, and it didn't break that way that I managed to get there, then them's the breaks. Yeah.
Yeah. And hopefully we did a good, I don't want Abe to feel put out that we didn't beat this naturally. And hopefully, we made a good enough case for why this was very difficult to actually just straight up engage with.
Yeah.
I can say with honesty, I did my best.
Yes.
To try to do that. And then just, I'm pretty ahead on assignment play. It wasn't a time thing. It wasn't something I blamed the job on. It was the classic, well, if I wasn't doing this for the job, I would have just quit probably at this point.
And
the option wasn't do it the right way or cheat. It was cheat or not do it.
It's one of those things, like we open saying like, hey, now there was like this, I'll speak for myself and you can let me know if you agree, but like there was enough here that was cool and enjoyable and that I was into that part. A big part of my frustration is that those things got in the way of me, embracing it whole. Right.
Yeah. I just kept finding myself, the ratio, you spend so much more time in battles and restarting battles. So the ratio between like the funny dialogue and badass skeleton content to restarting a battle because I didn't know which way, the mummies were coming from was not good enough. For me. And it's just, in 1998, 18-year-old Gary would have had unlimited patience for that. 41-year-old Gary will die someday.
Yeah. So let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Yeah.
There's a very good opening, like a track mode cutscene before you get to the main menu, showing the Dread King waking up in his pyramid. This might technically be a ziggurat, in the middle of the desert.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, give me a ziggurat, baby.
Give me a ziggurat.
But he wakes up and this huge wave of energy causes the dead to erupt from the earth.
Can you imagine?
Oof.
Like, don't talk to me until I've released a huge wave of energy. Releases the dead from the earth. So we see the sarcophagus he's in as Lich breaks through it. He's got this green energy coming out of him. Incredible. Some best in class skeleton content going on in this game.
Yeah.
And then we get our little cutscene with Commander Bernhardt, our guy who cuts his own hair, and the Grudgebringers whom's hair he cuts.
Yeah.
They don't know what's happening in the south.
Yeah.
And we get our first choice here. There's a trading post that these orcs are coming to attack greenskins, or if we stay the course and follow orders and go to Castle Altdorf. I help the trading post because they're defenseless, and I was role-playing my Commander Bernhardt as a good guy before I got all the cutscenes of him talking about good doesn't spin like gold, but blood does in the sand.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I didn't really know what kind of guy he was.
No, I did this because it's like, well, I don't know. I better learn how to add before it asks me to subtract. So
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So I was like, I might as well do my job here, and we'll protect the trading post. And I robbed them. Of course, there was a big old chest of gold in the middle of the town that I sent a guy over to grab.
It was there on the map. I wasn't gonna, gold bleeds better than blood.
I'm not gonna leave it alone in the middle of nowhere. It'd be rude.
Yeah. If you didn't take it, then one of the greenskins would take it.
God, I hate that they use that word. I know.
It sounds racist.
It does.
It's not, because goblins aren't real. But
it's too analogous to a derogatory term used for actual persons, and I'm a fucking caricature of myself.
And they say it all the time too, just like with the utmost disgust, even though they're barely the enemy in this game.
Yeah, no, like the orcs and the goblins, like, yes, they are fighting us, or we are fighting. But they're being displaced. They're being pushed into our lands. It's weird.
Yeah, by undeads.
Yeah.
So the trading post battle is the closest thing we have to our green hill zone here. Basically, this U-shaped kind of road here. We got goblin units at the start. Extra units arrive as backup partway through. So these battles are dynamic. Sometimes enemies will be added.
Yeah. Or you'll stumble across them, kind of waiting here. I like this as a first map, because imagining myself coming from Shadow of the Horned Rat or whatever it is, into this and seeing that the terrain is modeled in 3D, like right away, and kind of seeing that, because like, yes, this is a huge U-shaped road, but the end that the enemies start on is at a higher elevation. And there are crossbow goblins kind of like right at the crotch of the U, pretty high up, taking shots at you, and your dudes will have to take kind of a circuitous route around to get them.
Yeah. After we take these guys out, Klaus and Morgan. So Morgan's our main character. Klaus is an old German man who is like a longtime companion to Morgan, like an advisor. To him. He spends a lot of time kind of Colonel clinking.
Yes.
Like, Morgan, do not go over there. We need, I can't do an accent, but just like, the undead will be able to muster. And you have to go, but blood is gold. And then just go do the side quest.
Right.
Here he talks about how the crows eat well no matter who wins. Very Game of Thrones kind of thing. A feast for crows. They come down and eat corpses.
Yeah.
After battles.
Carrion by Wayward Son. But yes, we receive a messenger arrive saying, hey, Morgan, the Emperor needs you back at Altdorf, kind of the seat of the Empire here, this big castle where we're going to be spending a lot of time.
Yep. But we find out that the orcs and goblins are attacking the lands of the border princes. There's the way things are named in this game is very First Draft and Little Kitty, in a way that wasn't charming until it was.
Yeah.
It's the border princes. So something is pushing them south. So we either can go defend the border princes or go defend the town of Helmgart. And you go to Helmgart eventually, regardless. But this does make a difference.
Yeah. And you get a second cavalry here. You get a guy who never really shows up in cutscenes, really. You just have Sven Karlsson hanging around with his cavalry, kind of providing you with another thing to flank enemies with.
Yeah, cavalry is very useful.
Yes.
And that's extremely useful. It's like there aren't things that counter it specifically in a rock, paper, scissors way. It's not like the enemy's going to set up like phalanxes.
Yeah.
Cavalry are just way better infantry.
Yeah. They can move very fast.
Advantage, no disadvantage.
Yeah. They move really fast and they will just charge through infantry like nothing. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Which is very satisfying, to be fair.
Yes.
Like.
So this is the Border Prince's mission here, going and helping them. This is neat. This map shows up a couple of times. We're waiting in ambush kind of alongside this long straight road that kind of runs the entire thing. The idea being that, this band is kind of marching through to get to a place where they're going to attack and we're going to waylay them. Yeah.
So you get to set up an ambush. It's kind of setting up the stealth mechanics is the wrong way, but managing the enemy's line of sight. To get into their back ends or their flanks or what have you.
Yeah.
You do this, you take them all out, And the part we get into the town, your party, talks about how the town is very uneasy. There's some kind of supernatural fear pervading it. And we meet our fire wizard here, Luther Flamestrike.
He's dressed up like a pajama Satan.
He does look like he sells candy cigarettes.
Yeah. Or especially spicy ham.
Yeah. I also, him being named Flamestrike reminded me of Dwight's dentist being named Crentist. Just like, your dentist is named Crentist. Maybe that's why he became a dentist. Your flame wizard is named Flamestrike? Klaus says we should bring him along. He could be useful. And of course I want to bring him along.
Obviously.
What wizard?
Yeah. He's incredibly useful. Like I there was no other way to handle mummies than to use his fire spells.
Lighting them on fire. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we get to this town, Grisberg is what it is, that has been overtaken by the undead. And of course we get the decision to defend them or not. It didn't feel right to leave them in the lurch or leave them in the lich. So we set up for a defense, where you deploy into the middle of this, little 2-street town. And you're not sure which direction the undead are going to come from. You can make an informed guess that it's going to be from the graveyard, but that might be what they want you to think.
Sure. Risky skeletons.
Yeah.
But they do come in from the north.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you keep your range units kind of back in town there and, soften them up. Again, that's the Omni tactic for the first half of this game.
Yeah. There's a bit of a surprise there. Like for me, one of them went around the town to like the south, which was where I had my artillery positioned. So I had to like call somebody back from the front in order to protect my artillery. Because one thing about the artillery specifically is if it's not operating with a full crew, it won't fire.
Yeah. As soon as it gets attacked, it kind of loses its crew.
Yeah.
And it has very low defense. So if something makes its way to your artillery, you're kind of fucked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is where the Witch Hunter General shows up, and there's an implied history between this guy and Bernhardt.
Yeah.
And who even knows what is up with this guy? Everyone hates him.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to be like a McCarthyite, like he's a witch hunter.
Yeah.
I was just like, who employs you? Like the Emperor is also really dismissive of your skills. Like, did you just self-appoint?
There has to be a church in the Warhammer world that we're just not interfacing with in this.
Yeah. Does not show up.
Yeah. I mean, just if this is supposed to be Europe, then like, you've got the secular government and the empire, and then like maybe, I don't know, is there an anti-orc pope somewhere?
Sure.
Yeah.
Popes probably don't like the greenskins.
Yeah, probably. Historically.
Yeah. He's talking about the dead rising and stuff. And they're this is the beginning of their verbal, call me commander, call me witch hunter, but only if you call me commander, going back and forth.
Yes.
Nonstop.
And of course, the grandiosity. I love that he says, I am the surgeon of sin.
Yeah, he's got big Dermot energy, this guy.
Yeah. Oh man. But he says, I've been down here banishing all these heretics and what have you. The undead are super thick in the south. That is who is pushing the orcs north. They're fleeing from them. So like we need to go, like this is the first we've really got confirmation of that. We need to talk to the Emperor at Altdorf and get a and get a plan together.
Yes. The undead are trying to drive the orcs north, but they're dummy thick.
Yes.
And their asses keep clapping, providing terror and mummies to the world. When we get back to Altdorf, the Emperor, who is really flat, this voice performance is very funny to me, says like, hey, you have to protect the Countess Leibovitz. And she comes with us with this regiment of bowmen with us. Always happy to have more bowmen. Yep. Anytime somebody just gave me a bunch of dudes, I was happy.
Yeah.
I give them shits.
Bring me a tribute of dudes.
Yep.
Yeah. And these are bowmen as distinct from the crossbowmen that we have. Bowmen can actually arc their shots, so they can fire from behind ranks as opposed to firing through, which took me a while to figure out that that's what the crossbowmen were doing.
Yeah, just shooting my guys in the back like Cassidy in Fallout 1.
Yep. Oh, so we're escorting her, and we get to the city of Bogenhafen. We get there, the mayor approaches us. I love the like universal mayor model that they have with his extravagant facial hair.
Burger, like this like Bavarian Duke that shows up, and they're all played for like comedy cowardice.
Yeah.
Like these guys,
just immediate turncoats.
He got a letter, and it's a threat that the undead are going to come sack the town if they don't surrender the countess. I love the undead just sending me a letter. Like,
I mean, they do it in Plants vs. Zombies.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah. We have to go to Helmgart though, and we tell him, hey, protect the countess with your life or we'll come back and kill you, because we are very involved with the countess instantly.
Yes.
There's this, again, it felt like there's a history there I wasn't seeing, where Bernhardt was just like, it's personal. Yeah. If she dies, you all die.
Yeah.
And I had no idea where it was coming from.
Yeah, it was not, it was not explained. So I just had to infer that, because she was the one female character, that my main character would be interested in her.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
we go to Helmgart, and this is the first really difficult mission to me. Like, this is one that I redid many, many times. Helmgart's this big fortress. They basically a stand-in for like Helm's Deep, right? But instead of defending it, we have to retake it because it's been overrun by the dead. And boy, do the enemies use their height advantage against you. Just a line of skeleton archers standing along this ridge that bisects the entire map. And there's one ramp up that passes right by a necromancer who summons reinforcements.
Yeah. It's a huge difficulty spike.
Yeah.
In this, partly because you're fighting, the undead. All of a sudden, more undead, and then also they're in a fortress, like they're in a place that's designed to be defended.
Yeah.
Very tricky.
And the big thing about fighting undead, there are enemies, like there are like legendary monster units that have like damage resistances and things like that. But like undead units have fear, so they will rout your guys, and it doesn't result in death. They will run away. Maybe they will be thinned out as they are attempting to run, or they will run into unwise situations. While you are waiting to regain control of them, the enemy is pushing an advantage on you that you cannot address.
Yes. Yeah. So very difficult. This also took me several tries. Even like, I think the first time I did it, I squeaked through. And then this was the first series of battles that taught me if you squeak through, you lost.
Yes.
Like a near failure is a failure.
Yeah.
And a near failure is basically a near failure. Like, it really downward spirals you.
Yeah. C's do not give you degrees. They give you defeats.
Yes. C's get defeased.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a real round down kind of thing.
Yeah. So
once you do this, we go back to Altdorf, and it turns out the Countess has been kidnapped. That mayor fucked up. And the Emperor figures out who the captor was. The last of the vampire counts, Castaigne of Castle Drakenhof. And him in Castle Drakenhof, very, very good to me.
And the fact that it is literally just what, like a Lisa Harkness kind of thing. It's exactly that.
And it's in Sylvania. Is the other thing. Not Transylvania, just Sylvania.
Yep.
It reminded me of Callahan's Crosstime Saloon or something.
A little bit. Yeah.
We went to the, the Franken-Knots from Castle, Steinengolm are sending creatures from the Black Lagoonulon. It's just very, very fucking first draft kid silly in a way that was pretty funny.
My version of this is kind of coming up was the EverQuest lore.
Sure.
There was a spooky, one of the major dungeons you would go to kind of early on, was like a big spooky haunted house that was called the Estate of Unrest, which is come on, dudes.
Yeah. Unrest Estate. It reminds me, I had a stepsister growing up, and her cousin used to hang out. And one time I ran to them. She was a couple years younger than me. And she's like, we're starting a gang. And I was like, what's your gang called? And she said, the Army.
Yay!
Oh, it was just and it was the same kind of naming convention. I was like, oh. Cool.
I love that. That's so good.
Yeah. We're the army. Badass. This is also a big humor part because we run into the court mage Volkmar, who shows up and they found the Liber Mortis, which again, just Book of the Dead.
Yep.
But, and he talks about how reading it is all scary. Like you'll get the 13 damnations and 7 damnations more.
Yes.
And all this shit. And it's just incredible.
I was partially damned and it twisted my soul, but I was able to untie my knots before the chamber door was blown off. The 77 chamber doors on the Tower of Terror.
And it's exactly that. Yeah. And everyone has this PS1 neutral polygon face to all this as he's just going on and on about the different damnations that have been visited upon him
and all of the explosions.
It's very funny. Like, and it's just like, oh, this is a funny game.
Yeah.
This is meant to be funny. Like, it sucks that I spent so many times redoing that fucking tower mission.
Yeah.
Because this would be really refreshing if it wasn't for that.
Yeah. It's beautiful and it's heightened because of the flat delivery.
Yeah, it's very funny. So in doing this stuff with the book, he learns about this entity called the Dread King, which might be the reason why the undead surge has come up, and of our 3 MacGuffins.
Yes.
The Jewel of Morsleeb, the Hand of Nagash, and the Black Grail.
Right.
So we have to go take care of all these things, and then that will win.
Yeah.
Battle.
Fortunately, the first of the MacGuffins lines up with rescuing the damsel, with rescuing the Countess Leibovitz, because the Jewel of Morsleeb is in Sylvania, and it is under the possession of Castaigne. We need to defeat him before he can turn the Countess into his new vampire slave.
Yeah. So the Witch Hunter General, is like I'll go ahead and Scott right ahead of you. He keeps getting to places, saying he's going to accomplish it before we do. And then we get there, he hasn't done anything and never accounts for that.
He just yells at us for not showing up and doing the thing.
Yeah. He just shows up to watch. And then Bernhard is just kind of like, we didn't have your hot air to ride on. Like they start making their little Laffy Taffy jokes at each other. It's just an excuse for that.
Oh, man.
First mission here is the Great Forest 1, which looks empty, but there are undead troops that ambush you in these mounds.
Yeah.
This is hard. I didn't find it as hard as the last one.
Yeah, it's a big map. And like they will emerge from these mounds. I think that those are supposed to be like copses of trees, Yeah. It ends up being like a little bit maze-like, because of the way the line of sight works. You end up needing to kind of I did not find an elegant way to make progress without walking directly into an ambush. It was like stepping on rakes.
Yeah. And you just want to take it real slow, like one ambush at a time through this. We get through this, we get to a town, we get some more infantry, but it turns out they're undead in the surrounding hills. And the Witch Hunter General who showed up here before us is like, I'm suspicious, I'm going to go take care of something. And it really sounds like he's going to go raise some undead.
Yeah.
But he's not.
I'm going to go return some videotapes. Come on, dude.
It is it's a real false Chekhov's gun kind of thing here with the Witch Hunter General.
Yep. Oh man! So we continue into the Great Forest here. This was my my second mission here. I was taking all the optional missions on this until up until it kind of yelled at me for doing so, and then I realized I'd be yelled at either way. But as we head into here, we cross paths with this guy named Eusebio the Bleak, who is a leader of the group of flagellants here in the woods. He says, "Hey, there's something wrong. Can you help me and go in and investigate it?" And so we're checking stuff out with these whip dudes.
Yeah, and it turns out it's orcs and goblins.
Yeah,
you hear. But this is where when we do this, we get monster units.
Yes,
in our party. I think that's real cool. I wish there had been more of this stuff. Like they don't turn out to be as useful as I want them to be.
Yeah. Well, no, you're fighting the monster, like the monster folks. You don't get to control any of them.
I was thinking of the I was getting confused with the ogres.
Yes.
That you get later. Did you get the ogres? I don't think you have to. Did you get the ogre units?
I got one. I got it was like a hill giant or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's ogres you get later as well, but you can get little like monster unit guys. Here you fight giant spiders and scorpions.
Yeah.
which are introducing the light terror mechanics. For characters.
And you've also got you got a shaman who pops around. I think this is one of the first times I had to deal with a teleporting caster, and I don't think my flame mage had teleportation yet.
Yeah, they get teleportation before you do.
Yeah.
The Great Forest Battle 3, more orcs and goblins as we're up on this road by a river. And they're trying to split up our group.
Yes. Here. Yeah. There's goblins who charge from like your side of the river and will attempt to like pincer you in. But there's an awful lot of cover from the town in the way. So they can't really get up behind you as you're making your push up around the bend. Yeah. And we reach a place called the Blighted Towers. Klaus will tell us, hey, there are Imperial forces nearby, ready to sack these Blighted Towers. We can go and help them out, and we may be able to finagle ourselves some cannons and mortars. And so this is a cutscene that we get here, where we get the undead working in a mine, and one of them hits a seam of green light and gas or whatever. The Dread King is here, but he goes away, and we're here to deal with his forces, including a rock lobber.
An orc that throws rocks. When the enemy has these artillery things, it's really fucks you up. Those are incredibly powerful. They're on a ridge above you. They have archers as well, and a teleporting magician. Very difficult.
It's just, man, like. It doesn't. I couldn't find an elegant way that was not just doing like a Fabian strategy. Just like, well, okay, so they're going to fire, bows and arrows at us. Well, we're going to charge into the maw of death and choke them.
Yeah,
choke them with our dead. Yeah. So in some of these situations, it was really hard to find a clean way, a clean way to make those approaches. Because
how grudge bringers do.
They had short leashes. I was not able to get them to engage and pull them into an ambush like I wanted to.
Yeah. After the mission, the witch hunter criticizes you, says you shouldn't be fighting orcs while they're undead. I'm going to take one of your pieces of artillery, and you get to choose which one you keep. Here, I don't know what he's going to do with it. He doesn't have an army or anything.
No,
he's just going to ride on this cannon.
He just wants a personal cannon.
Yeah, he's off doing a different video game that we don't get to see. There should be like a Operation Ada.
Yeah,
for him.
This came with a bunch of mods and weird little side campaigns. I would not be surprised if that was one of them.
It almost would have to be.
Yeah,
because otherwise it is so ridiculous.
Yeah. I chose to have him keep the cannon. So I could keep the mortar, just so I could have a lot of variety on mine. Like I already had a straight firing cannon. The mortar is good again because longer range, and it doesn't kill anybody that is directly in the line of fire.
Yeah. So we get to Sylvania, this big open field. There's a lake in the middle. There's a vampire lord there, and then they have the screaming skull catapult. In Warhammer, apparently screaming skulls are a thing because you get a spell that shoots a screaming skull as well.
Did you ever throw a Nerf Vortex football?
Yeah. Very similar.
Extremely similar. Just that they had those at the recess yard when I was growing up at school, and you would just be walking across, walking along, minding your own business, and you hear a distant whistling, ooh, and then the thing would just fucking pelt you because somebody threw it at you from about 50 yards away.
I always ran away because it filled me with terror.
You were very much like my troops in this. Vampire lords are no joke.
Yeah. I was a little infantryman when I was a kid. I was a Yankee Doodle Dandy. The vampire lords are no joke. Fear is a huge pain in the ass in this.
Yeah.
On you.
Yeah. So it's a bit of a complicated battle because the enemies across the way are not as much of a threat as the ones who are kind of coming up from behind. So, it's going to draw your attention because, if you're deploying the way you think that you ought to, You're going to be pointed in one direction, looking down the barrel of the screaming skull catapult, and you're going to have waves of dudes coming up from around the side. So this is one of those ones where definitely I had to do my Katana Zero time drug in order to get this one to fire right.
Yeah, really, really illustrative of a weakness in the game. Like you're making strategic decisions if you have information to make them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there's nothing there weren't hints that things were going to come out of the other side of the map.
Yeah,
and come up behind us. So given the information you had, of course you're going to deploy based on the enemy, the vampire lord.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not good design to gotcha that way.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah. If I was equipped with the responsiveness or, the information to kind of see when something like this was coming up, I could feel like a tactical, master who could kind of reconfigure things on the fly to account for things. That would be an amazing feeling. I didn't feel like I had the infrastructure necessary to make that happen.
No. And part of it is just also probably like weakness. Probably just there are people probably who can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just not them.
Yeah. I'm a different person. I did different things.
Yeah.
So we arrive at Castle Drakenhof, and the witch hunter meets us. Did it go this way for you where he says, "Hey, the castle is empty"?
Yes. he rescued her from an empty castle.
Yeah.
It's real strange. Again, it's super suspicious, but to no end. It's like, he turned her into a vampire.
Yeah.
Or he's a vampire, or somebody's got to be a fucking goddamn vampire at this point. Because otherwise, why is there all this foreshadowing?
Is there a secret vampire here?
Yeah. And the answer is no.
Nope. Yeah.
How did they do that? Why did they do that?
So you didn't get the jewel MacGuffin at all?
No, yeah, he said that the castle was empty.
Mm-hmm.
We have to, and he presents the MacGuffin, or presents her to us rather.
And then it says like, we will send our units into the tunnels beneath the castle to try and catch the vampire lord as it flees. Like, okay, so we're going to set up and I'm going to deploy, and it's going to be a kind of a close up mission in these, like in the Underdark or whatever, right? And then it just immediately goes to, I can't believe we messed that up. The jewel is beyond our grasp.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah.
Super, super weird.
Instead, we just go back to Altdorf and say, so Dread King got that jewel, and you still got a vampire lord out here. I got a magical item that will explode if one of my guys dies while it's equipped.
Yeah,
got the heart of woe.
I don't know what it's about.
Yeah,
it's still like you still win in the grand scheme of things. We still did the 1/3 of the deal.
Yeah.
For some reason, but it's very confusing.
It was telling you just like for all the world, the signal was you fucked up and you missed one of the three things. And it really, really felt like it was my fault because I was making decisions along the way, getting myself involved in things. Very plausibly, it could have been the case if I said no to a bunch of that, I would have gotten here in time before they ran off. Right.
They both work though.
Yeah.
Like I've looked a little bit on like looked at the walkthrough and stuff of this as well to figure it out. And that's not the case. So I don't know what we're missing here, but something.
Yeah.
It was confusing for me too. You're not alone.
Yes. It was confusing communication.
Yeah.
We go back to Altdorf, and Matthias, the witch hunter guy, says, "Hey, this gem that we're after, that we were going for, it was some kind of warp stone." And then we get Volkner or whatever he is, the court mage. He consulted the cursed book again, fighting a beast made entirely of fingers.
Yes, very good. I like the
do I need to read a Warhammer bestiary?
Yeah, there's beasts made of fingers apparently, and screaming skulls.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we learned that stone will enhance the malignant aura of the Dread King. And the Emperor says, okay, well, go after the Hannah Nagash next.
Mm-hmm. That's why pencils have erasers. You're fine.
Yep. It's in Kislev, and the witch hunter says he has to accompany you because the heretics who live there could corrupt you. There's a weird part of it is like the strumpets or something that will corrupt you.
Something like
succubuses.
Yeah, maybe.
Like there's a weird, the witch hunter is also a prude. in this. And there's the implication that Bernhard is a legendary porn hound and poon hound.
There we go.
And he will just, immediately eat out Succubus 1.
Yeah.
As soon as she shows up.
Yeah. But it's also just kind of played off like soldiers be whoring,
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell, This is low fantasy, so I would totally believe them saying like, "Oh yeah, we're an army. We're totally going to hit up the brothels, dude."
But, yeah, that's what they're for, and that's what we're for.
Yeah. But regardless, it is played for comedy.
On the way, the emperor also says like, go through this town on the way and help them out.
Yes. Going through this, first we're on our way to Talabheim. I get stopped by this ogre named Erblad Rotgut, who says, "Hey, yes. you're headed towards a flooded road. You might want to go around." This was the first time, again, because the game just told me you screwed around and you showed up too late. I said no, also because, why would an ogre try and steer me right? So I said no. I didn't take his advice.
I went with them.
Okay.
And you get ogres.
Okay.
I don't remember very much about the battle that you go with them, but it's the main thing I remember about this is the cutscene of him going, "War name's Erblad Rotgut," and then your guy going, "That's your problem." Like saying it, the little, real silly little dunk in that voice. "That's your problem." Like super pissed.
He's like, "Nice name." Did they run out of other ones when you went to pick them?
Yeah, the jerk store. They ran out of you. But yeah, you go with them, you get ogres, which are good.
Yeah.
They're what you expect. And I wanted more monster units.
Yeah,
but I was happy to have ogres. Erblad.
Yeah, Erblad and his folks. But yeah, I thought it was an ambush, so I skipped him over. You get to Talabheim, and I'm given a choice, like, hey, you can take some coin or a new cannon. I figured that the cannon would be more worthwhile, because I had been redoing stuff. I was kind of okay on coin at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think this might be actually the difference between these things, and I could be misremembering, so nobody jump down my throat. But I don't remember getting this specific choice. Getting this choice, what you give up for going the ogre route.
Oh, maybe. Well, yeah. So maybe you got ogres and I got a new cannon or a choice for more gold. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think that's what happened, but I could, again, this blurs together and I replayed so many of these fucking missions.
Yes. Yeah. But we have to defend Talabheim. It's very much like, I think it was like the second mission toward the beginning there, when you were fighting off the undead. You're in this town and you've got to take them out as they're coming in, but the houses provide plenty of line of sight cover. So like you could have your infantry like on one side of them sighting for the mortar to hit, extending their line of sight. And with a little bit of, again, retrying this, positioning the cannons in the right spot, you end up softening enemies where they get even close to you.
Yep. We get a little brigand ambush on the way on this road as well. They have Imperial cannons that they've stolen or gotten somehow that are in the corners of the map.
Yep.
It's very difficult. They're trying to soften you up, and you have to figure out how to either get your guys close enough.
Yeah.
And deal with them before you die from the cannons.
Yeah. Getting hoisted by somebody with my own tactic. Damn them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're passing into Kislev, kind of into this frozen north here, looking for the hand or what have you, the hand of Nagash. When we cross over, we are greeted by an Ice Age Vladimir Stormbringer.
Ice Mage.
Yeah.
It sounds like you said you were greeted by an Ice Age.
Is an age of reckoning. Yes.
It's that horrible mammoth and that little critter thing.
Yep.
I don't know enough about the creatures from Ice Age.
It's John Leguizamo. What's his name? Ray Romano and Dennis Leary. There we go.
Yeah, walk into a bar.
I leave. John Leguizamo seems fine.
Yeah, I bet you Ray Romano would be fine to talk to as well.
Yeah.
I just don't want to talk to Dennis Leary.
That's the thing, right? It's just it's
a gross Willem Dafoe.
would have a nicotine stained Willem Dafoe. Yes. But we cross over. He was sent by Vladimir was sent by the Tsarina to kind of escort us to the Imperial seat up there.
Yep. And we get ambushed again here as we're talking. These orcs and trolls come out. So it's 2 ambushes in a row. Pretty irritating.
It's many ambushes.
Yep. The trolls are the big deal here. They have to be hit with fire. They're classic D&D trolls. That was a weird little bit of fantasy, cross-cultural help.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't struggle with it too much because I assumed I needed fire, even though that is a specific to D&D thing.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I was just like, this borrows from everything. They had a vampire at Castle Dracula on, like, the fire probably for the troll.
Yeah. It ended up being kind of a thing because your Grudgebringer sword will fire that, but it's got a long recharge, and even though I think you can teleport by this point, if it's not here, it's very very shortly. But your fire mage can only be in so many different places at once, so you end up needing to like hold the trolls off long enough to get the fire support in to deal with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you like ambushes, you'll like this next mission as well.
Yeah.
At some point, this is Bernhardt's problem. Like, put out a fucking watch, dude.
Yeah. Send out a scout. Like, don't just assume that everything's going to be okay.
This game needs a spy economy of some kind because this is your 3rd ambush in a row on your way into Kislev.
It's Bush League.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we end up just kind of in this frozen area, more screaming skull launchers. And we got these kind of cliffs that are in a switchback formation. And again, you're just charging up the meat grinder to get up there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Enemy necromancers warp around. This is where you use constrict and hold them in place, so we can kill them, so we can't pepper us down. When we arrive at the Tsarina's palace in Kislev, she says, hey, the undead are here as well. They're a scourge. We mentioned, like, well, that's all well and good. We're looking for the Hand of Nagash, though. And she said it's frozen inside this glacier to the north. And the undead are trying to get it as well.
Yeah.
It turns out the Hand of Nagash is not a hand. It's a frozen necromancer who served Nagash, the ancient god.
Yes. She has scried his exact location for us. We need to go and make sure that he doesn't fall into the hands because, the servant of this old dead god being in line with the Dread King is not good for anybody.
Yes. Yeah. As we go through, we're talking to one of our old friends, Ragnar and his wolves, this other mercenary band, who wants us to help him with some trolls. He says he'll help us with undead. I did this as well. The battle is no great shakes. You just get some more units.
Yeah.
Here, but then the next battle is definitely harder. They are more mustard.
Yeah. And I mean, did Ragnar and his men, his wolves, come with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they help.
Yeah. Man.
And at this point, I was still kind of like figuring out the exact line of how perfectly I had to play each mission.
Right.
So anything that gave me more units, I was like, yes. Because not only is that just like a better action economy and more verbs for me in this, it's also a bigger push-in or a bigger cushion.
Yes.
For mistakes in the future, which I know I will make because the game is hard.
Yeah. I was frustrated. Did you end up keeping Vladimir, the ice mage? Did he come with you for this?
Yes.
He must have died during a mission and I was unaware, but just one mission I had an ice mage and the next one I didn't.
Yeah. That's also a thing in this game too. When we talk about the information issue, is your attention is really split. Here it is easy to lose important things without really realizing it until the end of the battle. It's like a micro version of the shitty, like you're fucked before you know it.
Yeah.
Like the battle can go pretty well, but you lost a key unit and it still might be worth restarting.
Yeah, it could, because my attention was elsewhere and I didn't see the mage's portrait pop up in the bottom left corner and hear him go, do his little death yell. And then he's gone. Yeah. I was down. I did not have my ice mage for the rest of the game.
No, I grabbed him. I lost one of the other ones around here, but again, it's all a blur.
Yeah.
So we go to the northern waste here. We're on a big ice map, fighting up a hill. Skeleton archers, screaming skull launcher on different bluffs, etc. it's their trick.
Yes. It's almost like a ski slope kind of thing that they're on. Just all of them are like standing on weird little outcrops here. Pretty tough. Your artillery is basically useless. But we get to the location where the glacier is, and of course Matthias, the witch hunter general, is there. He criticizes us for being late. The undead have freed the hand, and he must be destroyed in combat.
Yeah. So we get a little cutscene of this necromancer we've seen.
This goofy looking guy.
Yeah, this weird dork chanting this incantation to free the hand there. And here's our climactic battle here.
Mm-hmm.
Very difficult.
Yeah.
This undead cavalry unit, these undead chariots, I think are badass, but also a huge pain in the ass.
Oh my gosh. It's not fair when they use my own tactics against me.
Yeah. And again, it's like, it was hard enough to develop these tactics in this hard thing. Figuring out the counter tactics.
Like, I know.
I don't fucking know. You know? How do people do this in real life?
They probably read books about it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a discipline. They hired people for it.
Oh no, they're coming at me from the side. How could I have foreseen this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, they're fast and they're tough. And the hand in the gash, either because of line of sight or just because he doesn't spawn for a while, it takes him a while to show up. And he's guarded by some wraiths and a necromancer. Boy, wraiths are a real problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is on top of necromancers, which are also a problem.
Yeah.
If you don't have the magic set up to hold them in place.
Yeah. This is a battle where I realized that, like, okay, I have moved beyond just a point where, you know, basic tactics and investing in my dudes, you know, will get me. Like, I really, really need to figure out and like look in the manual and see what each of these magical items will do, because I'm like, if one of these is waiting, you know, if a cooldown is ready to fire and I'm not hitting it, then I'm falling behind.
Yes. Yeah. You have to use all your consumables, basically. They're not consumable, but same basic principle.
Yeah. Yeah.
After you get rid of them, you go back to Altdorf and report our victory. Volkar says that, you know, we don't have a lot of information about the Black Grail, but we should head towards Bretonia.
Mm-hmm.
That is probably where there's more information.
Yeah, Bretonia is like the chivalric France, or like a Britain kind of deal.
Yeah.
That's the place where the Grail Knights are from. Yeah,
and Matthias is heading there ahead of time so we don't get distracted by Puss.
Of course. Yeah. Bernhardt will be corrupted with his weak mind and heart and faith and etc.
Yes. So we go through on our way here. It's game roll for it. You know, it's already been pretty formulaic, but you know, this is the formula, right? Like, we get ambushed a couple times on the way to one of these goals. We get a choice about whether we do a side quest.
Yeah.
And then we fight the main thing.
Mm-hmm. Around this time is where I started cheating.
Same.
Using, like, it's real cute. It's a very old style of cheat. It's not a console command. Like, you type a word on the main menu and then you'll hear like a cannon fire, you know, and then there are different like hotkey combinations that you can do to affect your roster in different ways. All the ones that I used primarily, I'd used like a level up on them to make my to make them more durable, just because it felt like no matter what I did, my guys were cut down way too quickly for me to be of any effect to them, to the enemies.
Or to replenish them, you know, and that's already so fucking tough.
Yeah.
I did the same thing, and the thing that it simulated was they're having random battles and we could grind.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't going to do, but it feels like it is balanced for such.
Yeah. The other option would be to say, oh, I didn't finish this game because I petered out 2/3 of the way through. Yeah. So I didn't ultimately feel too bad. Yeah. So, I mean, so you talked about things getting kind of formulaic here. Like we get an undead attack. They're kind of coming down 2 lanes. This is a strange one. Like they mostly went on the right. And that lured me into a sense of false confidence. Let's say that they would only be coming from the right, and then boom, one comes from the left, and I have to scramble.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
We get the king. The king says, hey, we don't have the Black Grail for you, but you should go to Musalon.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have anything else. He gives us some Grail Knights.
Right.
As we head out, we run to an elf leader, Elrond.
Oh, no, you mean Elrond?
Yeah, like of Bretonia. Bretonia. We have a history with this guy. He might be from the first game. It might just be from greater Warhammer lore. He says we need to talk to the Elf King and Queen. They have some information for us.
Yes. So I accepted his offer to go to the King's Glade, but we're attacked by orcs along the way. Because of course. Yeah.
For sure. Ambush.
Yeah, forest roads and stuff. This is about as hard as an orc fight gets. I was falsely confident, let's say, that I had solved these, but this is like the long roadmap again from the beginning, except instead of like maybe a couple of like smatterings of enemy regiments, it is a full parade of orcs on the march, and so they're pretty tough to break. Yeah, agreed.
We get into another fight on the road here.
Yep.
As we mentioned, this kind of thing. After we kind of get through this, so we have orc ballistas we're dealing with. They're tough. We run into Elrond. Elrond says there's corruption in the forest, and we start another fight with the undead.
Yeah.
Here. And fear is a big problem with this thing. We have elves and an ent, but they get feared. And the undead chariots are back, and they can freeze our guys in place.
Yeah. So freeze us in place while they're afeared. They're running away, but still they're running away, not doing damage and just taking damage as it goes. The Ent, the tree man, was the big monster unit that I had here. I ultimately ended up not deploying him because his advantages were not enough compared to like another let's say archer regimen, things like that. Yeah.
Well, like any kind of ranged thing.
Yeah.
Is always just going to be absolute king.
Yes. No. Rather than a tree man, I'm just going to put another battery over here.
Yeah. Yep. So we get to the King's Glade. I speak with the King of the Elves. And he says, hey, the King of Bretonia was ashamed of the true nature of the Black Grail. The Black Grail are knights. They used to be regular Grail knights, and they were corrupted.
Yes.
So basically, there are kind of little twists to all these MacGuffins, even though the twist for each one is it's actually a person.
Right.
Except for the first one. Like, they're just like, what if it was a guy? So he sends one of his regiments of archers to assist, which is great. We get another little side quest thing. We run into another tree man who asks for help with the undead here. Yeah. Which I think I did. Again, though, kind of blurry.
You're kept in a pretty advantageous position on this. You're up over a lake, kind of looking down. Like this is entirely meant to be like, hey, you have more archers than you know what to do with. Just cut them down before they can get to you. Going this way. There's really no reason. There's really no reason to engage in melee at all on this one. I saw that I saw. Other than necromancers coming around, but that ends up being, it's like any first person multiplayer shooter. The snipers take care of the snipers, and so on in kind. So my mages are keeping each other busy, and then archers are dealing with the rest. So
multiple wars within wars.
Yeah. So we're approaching this dead city of Musalon, and a highwayman tries to rob us. Tries to rob an army. This is funny too.
He's just a guy.
He's just a dude who's trying to rob an army.
He's got it, and you call him out on this. He says he's fought many armies.
Yep.
Like he's constantly robbing entire armies. Can you imagine like holding up the Marines as a whole?
Yeah. I mean,
not a Marine. The Marines.
Well, I mean, if it's just a couple of little girls in Illinois who are calling themselves the Marines.
Yeah, well, yeah,
that's their
case,
gang. Yeah. Oh man. So he's got these units of pistoliers on his side. And I decide to recruit him. I say, yeah, here we go. Join us for this. And he's surprised that we are going to this cursed place that he saw us marching towards.
Yes. Yeah. When you get there, Witch Hunter's there. It's like, why did it take you so long? Klaus shows up as well here, our German man companion. And the undead moved to fight us outside the city. So real big fight. We got the undead catapults. We can't really get near. We end up having to use our wizard to take them out.
Yeah.
And then fight tons of archers. Again, very tough.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bit easier to close distance on this one. I ended up being able to flank all of them. There was just something about the loadout of archers on their side that made it difficult, I think, for them to support each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to Musalon. We get a cutscene of the Black Grail cavalry charging out to meet us. It owns. They're a bunch of Black Knights, right? And we could do a big battle. And it's funny because it is this big battle and then another big battle, and that's the end.
Yeah, exactly. We get a cutscene here, which I like.
Yep.
The Black Grail cavalry popping out and charging to meet us. They're there right from the beginning. It doesn't show up later on the other opposite end of the battlefield. And we're fighting new guys here that pop in from the sides. Lots of mummies.
Yeah.
Which again, very funny. Just lots of mummies. Just a regiment of mummies.
Just an ocean of mummies flooding out. And I was like, okay, it's a mummy. How fine is that? And then I would just see, like, okay, I would start the battle and I would go and focus on other stuff. And I go back and say, wow, they're still fighting those mummies. And then I would check the troop count, and my guys would be down to like eight units out of 20. And then I would look there, 20 out of 20. Well, shit, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, they haven't killed Mummy 1. like, again, it's just them piling on units that you basically have to use your wizards on.
Yeah, which kind of undercuts like the cool moving troops around kind of angle. Like if everything can be solved by a hero unit, if that's ultimately the key.
It's more that your troops have to keep the enemy parts busy until your wizard is around.
Yeah, and then you hope that they hear the order to disengage and run away, so you are clear to use the AoE on the enemies. Otherwise, you're just raining hellfire down on your own dudes.
Yep.
Yeah. It's kind of strange because it's like they built this one system up entirely from the ground to be like, this is armies against armies using medieval tactics, on a grand battlefield. And then also we're going to build like a Diablo into this. And it's a weird fit.
It's dissonant for sure.
Yes.
When we eventually take out the Black Grail, which is difficult, like takes a lot of people to kind of put some dents into them. We go back to Altdorf, report our victory. The Emperor says, hey, time to make our final push against the Dread King. And Volkar says the Dread King is at the Black Pyramid in the Deadlands to the south. I don't know why they abide there to be the Black Pyramid in the Deadlands to the south, just in peacetime, but
yeah, we have an uneasy detente with the Deadlands and their Black Pyramids full of mummies that are waiting there.
Like one of my roommates is a monster spawner from Gauntlet. Just leave it. I think it's cool.
Yeah, it's in the lease agreement that we can't do anything about the monster closet.
Yeah. Yep, it's still there. So we get a little cutscene of our army traveling to the desert. Bernhard and Klaus talk about why they fight. Bernhard says, he doesn't know.
Yeah.
And his best guess is that he lives to cheat death.
I live to exist at the intersection of sexiness and danger.
Yeah. It's somebody talking about Sekiro on a resume. And we get to this gigantic battle against the Dread King.
Yeah. This is rough.
A big final exam that I'm glad I cheated through.
So many mummies. Like just you're at the far end of a very big battlefield, and there are smaller kind of pyramids out here And then you have the Dread King and his dudes, like all of his wraiths and stuff at the far end. And if you are not dealing with every single one of those little pyramids, like with the mummies around it, and you go right for the Dread King, they're going to come up from the side and they will destroy you.
Yeah. Yep. You cannot just do a beeline.
It has to be inch by inch in order to get that and hope. Like, I ended up having to restart because the Dread King just got a little bit too aggressive on me, and that inch by inch didn't work.
It sucks to cheat and still have to restart. It's like my dudes are pretty pumped.
It's a little bit of a bruise to the ego. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's difficult. Yeah. But you get through it.
Yeah. The Heart of Woe ended up making the difference for me. The magical item that the Countess gives you. Like I gave it to like an infantry that was not especially, well equipped at that point. It was like, okay, if this unit goes down, there'll be an explosion that does a good deal of damage. Otherwise that, it's useless. It just takes up a slot. Figured, hey, last mission, make that work. And then boom, it actually ended up helping a lot. So
sacrificing those grudge bringies.
We thank them for their sacrifice and their dorky haircuts.
Yep. I will cut your hair in Valhalla. Bernhardt. We get this little cutscene after we take him out. I love this. Bernhardt plants his flag in the king, the Dread King.
It's like the video for Nobody Speak.
It pretty badass. Yeah. And then he dissolves in white light. Yeah, and we've won the land. We're there to badass again.
Yeah. And Bernhardt would live on to be king. One imagines. I don't know.
He apparently has not shown up in a lot of other Warhammer stuff, but is very popular because of these games.
Yeah,
like he's considered. He has a lot of fans, is my understanding.
I mean, if you spend a lot of time playing through these games, like, you go through the first one, like, oh, I played as this guy for like 50 hours, probably. I'm pretty invested in his in his arc, even if it is generic and he has really, really dorky dialogue. Yeah. I could see wanting to see more of him, but the world of Warhammer is gigantic.
It wraps around again to be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like even just him specifically, like his shtick in the beginning is really off-putting, and then it's like kind of charming.
Yeah.
As a game, I was not having fun at the end of this.
Yeah.
Even remotely. Like even a little bit. So that's a real damning thing. I can't recommend this video game.
This is
to anyone.
And it kind of has me curious. Like, I don't know, I probably would never spend time on this, but like I've played a Total War game and those are fun. Like probably like that might be the way to to play a strategy game. And this, as it stands, this is it's antiquated and it's hard to interact with. And, you have those mismatches with the wizard combat versus everybody else. And then the poor get poorer kind of nature that we already kind of said. There's lots of stuff kind of stacked on the other side that kind of made this one, sometimes, I dread sitting down to a game even more than just like, oh, this is work and I'm technically doing this because it's an obligation, Like this is one of the ones where it's like, ooh, it's hard for me to find the motivation to sit down and go further, which again is disappointing because there are parts of this that I could see myself getting really into, and the trappings of this ended up really winning me over. That like I resented the friction that kind of kept me from being more enthusiastic about it.
If this were like 5 years ago when I had the self-awareness, I would come away from this and say like, oh, maybe I'm going to give that Shadow of the Horned Rat a try.
Yeah.
No. I know that's not the case.
No.
Like I'm not saying no to no more Warhammer ever, but different genres are harder to go back to.
Yes.
I find, so like I find, and this is subjective as hell.
Yeah.
But I can play, Baldur's Gate 2 or Fallout 2 and it feels not modern, but it feels of a piece with me playing Wasteland 3 or Pillars of Eternity or something.
Yeah.
Those are intentional throwbacks, but my point being is that it's not like playing an RTS game now and playing an RTS game then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like platformers age super well. It feels like to me, like, they're obviously really bad ones, but you can go back and play a Mega Man. It still feels pretty good. Like, hey, this is a Mega Man, you know?
Yeah.
RTSs have, for me, even as like a fan of the genre, have never stood that test of time the same way.
Yeah.
They always feel like they get to a point, there's like a point 1/2 to 2/3 the way through where the balance is perfect.
Yeah.
And like kind of correct.
And then it gets silly.
Like they can't, same thing happened with Dungeon Keeper, which is not an RTS, but it's a PC game of a similar vintage, where there's like a point where this like, yeah, this is really good, but you have to ramp up challenge and you don't quite know how to do it, right?
Yeah. Even a game that I have a good amount of like experience with in the past, like I played this back around the time that it came out and I enjoyed it and I know that it's a good game. Like, I'm really happy that we did StarCraft 2 instead of firing up the original StarCraft and Brood War, because yes, those still do feel, modern because of, just the vein that Blizzard had tapped into. There are a lot of missions that are just like, hey, do this for 45 minutes. Then you're done. And it's like, I don't know, like I've done an awful lot of things for 45 minutes. I'm looking for like better, for more goals or more interesting kind of demands that you can place on me than just survive. Right.
Well, and specifically like Brood War is where the difference, the reason why StarCraft I think holds up as well as it does is StarCraft 1 never quite leaves that like well-balanced thing. Like, it gets real hard at the end.
Yeah.
But Brood War is that from the very beginning. Brood War is so fucking hard.
Yeah. Brood War, it doesn't just pick up like, oh, like we're assuming that you just finished the original StarCraft. We assume that you finished StarCraft when you got this 2 years ago and you've been playing it constantly ever since.
Yes. It's a weird genre for scaling difficulty.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the things that makes StarCraft 2 really remarkable is that it scales difficulty really well. The way that it adds in alternate goals and conditions, things like that.
Yeah.
This just doesn't do that as well. I mean, there's no difficulty levels, but it doesn't do that as well.
Yeah.
It just ends up feeling like there are more units and more casters, and that is how they scale it up.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure there are people who are ripping their hair out that we're doing a direct comparison between Warhammer and Blizzard games. And understand that we just did StarCraft 2 here relatively recently, and the comparison is really hard not to make because I think that those are the RTSs.
RTS games.
Yeah.
I don't think that's not weird. They're of a lineage. It's just RTSs took a while to get like really golden.
Yeah.
I bet you we'd be saying similar things if we did the Dune.
Yeah, probably.
RTS.
Yeah.
Or even like Command and Conquer 1, which is a game I have some affection for, but also runs into that. Like, we have nothing to do other than pile on really tough units.
And there's also something about like the way that PC games from the late 90s to the early 2000s were paced, where you get that difficulty and scaling difficulty. Right. You get the awkwardness there combined with just things being really gummy and like sticking around way past their welcome,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that happened with console games as well, where like everything had to, but it ended up being like a confluence of factors that ended up just kind of fucking up the fun factor on this game, despite kind of appreciating it.
Yeah. So I'm really happy that I got a chance to dip into Warhammer, had to learn about Warhammer sometime.
Yeah. And I'm down to learn more about Warhammer in other contexts.
I'm curious about those, the squad based, Warhammer 40K, ones, cool. that are kind of like, I forget what it's like. Those seem kind of neat to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Like Space Hulk.
Oh yeah. Space Hulk looks amazing. Oh my God.
Yeah. There's cool looking shit. It just, this to me wasn't it, even though again, I did kind of get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Abe.
So thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Abe, for executive producing this.
Yeah, we appreciate that very much. If you have things to say about this or any of February's games, you have until February 15th to write in at duckfeed.tv/contact. And those games are Professor Layton and the Curious Village, this game, Warhammer Dark Omen, and State of Decay.
Yeah. If you have thoughts about March's games, you can write in as well. The deadline for those is March the 15th. Again, at Duckfeed.tv/contact. Those games are Inscription, Aliens vs. Predator 2, King's Bounty, and Until Dawn. We've got quite a lineup ahead of us. Yeah.
Yeah. Fascinating lineup there. I am partway through Act 2 in Inscription.
Ooh, I have not gotten that far in that yet. So I am curious.
My friend, should message me when you get there so I can help you not make the decision I made. Because I have to restart my Act 2 because I made a choice that I chose the most difficult option on accident. And it's pretty frustrating. So
is it, does the game make it clear when you're going into Act 2 or is it? Okay. Well, no. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. But yeah, give me a, in fact, I'll give you a coded Slack message. This is stuff we could talk about offline.
Yeah, we probably
could. Coded message once we're not recording and it won't spoil too much.
Okay. I will appreciate that. You can go to patreon.com/DuckFeed.tv and support the network. Not only does that make this show and other shows like it possible, but you get cool stuff in return, like the full versions of those premium episodes, State of Decay this month and Until Dawn next month. Those are premium ones where everybody gets the generalities, but patrons will get the full version with kind of the beat-by-beat rundown, which you will want specifically for Until Dawn.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And until next time, what should they watch out for?
Horses to the left.
Mm-hmm.